Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. Having taken 6 plants out of their tray and started to pot them up, the first thing I've realised is without the trays on that shelf, boy, do we get a bit more light down below. Yeah? Light can get down through between the pots. It can't get down through a solid tray. It's just the way it is. Berry odours just opened. Still going to get sold. They are pretty little flowers, but emphasis on the little flowers and very big plants, so still going to go. Anyway, I've got a few bits and bobs to do, so this will be a video made up of parts, and I'll try and string them all together seamlessly. I'll see what I can do. But all sorts of things, potting up in the kitchen, sorting out some of the plants that came out of the Seramis, and some of that was filmed yesterday. I'm adding some bits in that I've done today, and I'm trying to do my watering. And the quickest way to get a load of dislikes on a video, say that you've just sprayed your plants with a chemical. I've just sprayed my plants with a chemical. There you go, watch them pop up. Yeah, well, if you had 200 orchids that were getting eaten alive, perhaps you'd do it as well. Anyway, onwards and upwards. Oh, day lengths. I've just checked. Now that we're into February, we're over the 9-hour mark, heading towards sort of 9.5 over the next couple of days. And by the end of February, we hit the magic 11. So I've got one more month of slow growth. But by the end of the month, the plants will react. They will think, feels more like home now, like where I'm supposed to live. And they will kick off. I've had quite a few years where I've waited for that moment. And it is literally around the end of February, first week of March, you notice new growths pushing on at a rate of knots. Those that have already started speed up. Those that haven't yet started get going. It's a magical time. I think it's called spring. Yeah, I remember spring from last year. Okay, bits and bobs today then. I just thought I'd let you know how this is going. The idea of mixing up a stock solution of the MSU formula and keeping it in the fridge, basically. The supplier actually said that it's actually okay to store this stuff, as long as you shake the hell out of it before you come to use it. But basically it's working quite well. But what I will probably have to do for a month or so is not mix up such a strong solution. I'll find the date where I mixed this up, and that's all I've used so far. I mean, okay, I'm not watering as frequent this time of year, and I wouldn't feed at high levels at this time of year. But nonetheless, it's lasting well. So certainly through February, I don't need it as strong. Because the idea is to use it up over a 2 to 3 week period. The guy didn't recommend storing it much longer than that, but then he didn't recommend storing it in the fridge, which is what I'm doing. And just to let you know, when I take that out of the fridge to use it, and I go to shake the hell out of it, there is absolutely nothing in the bottom. So it's not going back into any shape or form solids. It's staying as a mixed solution. It still gets a hell of a shake though. Better to be safe. There could be tiny little things in there that I can't see that just need shaking up and dissolving again, but it's working. I'm really pleased. Given that had, I can't remember, 2 or 3 shovels, teaspoons, in that amount of water, and it's lasting this long, my tub is going to last me a very long time at this rate. Obviously the rate goes up as the season gets going. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know it's working, it stores fine, and too early to tell if I'm getting big results on the plants yet, because they're not growing that fast, but we will soon. Hi again. I won't be able to do all of these, I don't think, because I'll be filming in the dark, but most of the light when I'm filming in the kitchen, and no, I haven't had any more of that in between, is from electric lights anyway. There's very little you get from the window, so I may be able to carry on. I'll see how I go. Okay, This is the one I really want to save. It is a very special plant to me. The blooms are gorgeous, and it actually came from somebody who I'd like to keep her plant. Wasn't a gift, I did pay for it, but it went with a nice visit to her place to have a look round how she grew her orchids. And the lady in question works in a donkey sanctuary, saving injured and harmed donkeys and things like that. Wonderful lady. She used to sell loads of orchids on eBay, but seems to have stopped in recent years. But yeah, so it has a little bit of sentimental value. One thing I haven't done yet is just sealed these rhizome cuts, which there was no point in doing it until the hydrogen peroxide had done its thing. Now is a good time to seal them. Oh, apple pie. I love the smell of cinnamon. It just says apple pie to me. I'm sorry, that's just what it does. Now the roots, that's the rubbish. That's what's had to go. It's either got rotted bases or not worth saving. Yeah, okay, it has got a new growth, but none of those roots are viable. It's not going to work. Not worth the effort. But these two parts are worth the effort. This is the one that's got a reasonable new growth and signs of new roots, and these roots are still viable. Actually, that one is a bit soggy, but I need something to put in the pot. This one's got two new growths starting, and these roots are viable. So that piece at least will take. But how long away from blooming is that? I'd say a minimum of a year, maybe a year and a half. So it now is a rescue plant. Am I supposed to be rescuing plants? No, but I will with this one, because of its slightly sentimental value, and also it just doesn't come up very often. It's a beautiful plant. I don't want to lose it. And the fact that it's going in a tiny little pot, I'll find a little corner for it, and it can sit there and do its own thing. And if it doesn't do its own thing, it'll be out under the hedge. And I will look for another one, because you know, it's one of those plants I would like in my grow room forever. I would never get tired of it. And this one went downhill. I've had this one quite a long time, and it was doing quite well. And in those days, I used to believe what I read in books. I'm a little more sceptical nowadays, as you know. And books said, oh, repot your plant in the spring. Repot your plant in the spring. No ifs and buts. So Roger, thinking that the books know best, left this one in broken down media. Didn't repot it when I got it. It was already in poor media. And I left it right through the winter in media that was well gone. And by the time it got to the proverbial spring, when the book said, it was too late. The damage was done, the roots had gone. Now often the best time is to repot in the spring, because often in the spring it's when the new growth fires out, but not always. And the thing that overrides always is breaking down media. You leave your plant in that, you will do nothing but harm. There's a fair percentage of moss in this. This is a recovery plant. So I don't want this one drying out between waterings. I want this one to try and grow on. Well, one thing I haven't done, I've got a cane for this. I'll do it in a minute. No, I won't. I'll do it now. I haven't sanitised the cane. It's all very well doing your plants, but then you stick a dirty cane in the pot, and what have you just done? Just introduce the potential for mould spores and all sorts of nasty things that are lurking on your cane, especially in my case because they live out in the garden. And when I bring them in, I give them a good clean, like what I've just done. The whole beauty of the H2O2 is that it kills stuff and does it well. Okay, I know I'm going to need a cane, but I won't need a big one. I'll need a shorter one, and I'm going to need something to tie up. That's me being not very well organised. You don't see that very often. But I wasn't planning on filming this, quite honestly. I just wanted to crack on with it because I've got quite a lot to do as a consequence of doing all 6 at once. But I've started now, they're out of their pots, so I will finish. Right, I need new growths on the outside. Oh, I missed a stem. Oh, come on, there must be some moisture here somewhere. Something, oh, there's some in there. Can't do this with a dry finger, it doesn't work. There we go, that's got it. Now is that everything now? Done that one, done that one, done that one. Yep, that'll do. Right. New growth there. Let's get that root nicely down in now. Then it won't bend and break. That's that one. And then that one's the one with 2 new growths. Again, facing away from the other new growth, but I want the plant right in the middle of the pot so that the new growths have got plenty of room to do their thing. I just want that one over at a slight angle so that I don't bury the old bit. I doubt if this is going to stand up on its own because it's got so few roots. There's next to nothing holding it in the pot apart from me. But a reasonable percentage of moss this time. I wouldn't normally plant this type of plant with that much moss. With me, I'm afraid plants that drink a good bit, certainly in their growing season when it's warm in the summer, and I would class Oncidiums in that class and their intergenerics and everything else that goes with them nowadays. I would class those as high drinkers in their growing season when it's warm. But with me, rather than keeping the media soggy, I would rather water more often. Yeah? And still allow that partial dryness in between. But you could be talking just 2 days. So I'm just sitting a little bit of bark without moss on the surface because that's the bit that will be touching the base of those bulbs and the bit where those new growths are coming out, and I don't want those to rot because they're constantly wet sat in moss. So new growths just visible, yeah? I don't know whether you can see that, but the new growths are right on the base. They're not buried, they're not sunken in, but if they push out roots they'll go straight into the media. So that's quite a precise height. And this is the sort of care you need to do when you're trying to rescue. If this had stacks of roots on it, I'd have just flung it in the pot and it would have been fine. Now all I've got to do is get this flipping stake to get a hold. I always twist my stakes round, they're always pointed. If they haven't got a point on them, they get given one. And then twist it round, and if it does happen to come across a root, it will push it to one side. Skizzers. As I said, I'm not very well organised this afternoon. I wasn't planning on this. I was supposed to be out doing battle with the supermarket, getting shopping in. This was not the plan. Oh, there's something for you. If you want to attach that, you can just wrap it round and tie a knot, but it's fiddly. I'll show you a very special knot, okay? Make a loop over that way and hold it. Then make another one exactly the same and put the second one under the first one, put it over the top and pull it tight. And it will not slip or slide or come undone. It's probably got a very special name if you asked a Boy Scout or a Navy person. I think it's something like a half hitch or something strange, but whatever it is, it works. My dad showed me that when I was but a lad, you know, many moons ago, when men had to walk in front of cars with a flag, you know, that long ago. Okay, that's all I need to do is gently hold them in place in what is a firm stake. So that is one done. I've used raffia there because it won't stay there forever, and we'll put our label round the back of the plant, because when I water this for a while I'll probably only be giving it a gentle amount of water to be just moist. So that's one done. Now I've got to clear up. As I say, it's going to be dark soon. I don't know whether anybody's ever seen this. I don't know how many of you use hydrogen peroxide, but this is what you're looking for. Fizzy. Yeah, a fizzing action. That means it's killing stuff. The stuff is undetermined. It's basically anything. Spores, pathogens, scale, fizzing. When it's finished fizzing, there's nothing left to fizz on. Yeah, so it's done its job. So yeah, there was a fair bit of fizzing on that one. Quite a bit. It's still actually doing it. And one important thing I did discover was literally down in there where an old flower spike was, cut off far too close to the base, and down in here and down in there was some scale. So they are still around, they're still lurking. Now hopefully there ain't none lurking on that plant anymore. They've fizzed and they're gone. Now in theory, when that stops fizzing, the H2O2 becomes H2O, which last I looked was water, and it's completely harmless. But I'm not a trusting person, so I'm going to rinse the plant. There's another reason for me rinsing the plant as well. I'm going to get it all over my hands, and I don't know whether my delicate little hands want hydrogen peroxide on them. Anyway, it's rinsed. Whether it needed it or not. Now, a lot of roots came off this one, and one pseudobulb that was not up to much anyway. It's not actually rotten, it just looks it because of these manky sheaths at the bottom. I'm going to wash my hands again then. There's no point getting your plant all spotless and then touching a load of suspect murky stuff that hasn't been cleaned and putting your hands straight back on the plant. So anyway, that's the what is it? It's that. Come on, brain. I think. I might have to look back at the video to see what they were like when I took them out the pots to get the tags right, but I'm pretty sure that was the Sturbic, the one I said that Rachel's got. If not, I can switch them around later. Most of them I know. This one was a little iffy, and yeah, so I think that plant's viable. These are good roots. Yeah, these are healthy, strong roots, and we have a nice strong new growth coming out. It's got the support of its previous growth, and it's got a big fat solid back bulb connected via a rhizome, which will also give it support. So that should pull on okay, but not in the Seramis. Right, let's go and get some media sorted out. Okay, this plant's a bit different to the last one. The last one was a true rescue. Virtually no viable roots, hardly anything, tiny little pseudobulbs, needs to push on, and consequently it got potted up with a fair portion of moss and my smallest bark mix. This, strictly speaking, is not a true rescue. It's got a viable root system. You know, I've seen bigger plants with worse root systems than that, and these are good roots. These are okay, so it's not a true rescue. So this mix has got a tiny bit of moss in it, not a lot, and this is a mix of medium and small bark. I need a bit more air around this so that it can stay in the pot a bit longer. So a little bit in the bottom. We don't want that piece of wood, that's not bark. This is pretty good stuff, but every now and again you do get a bit of muck in it that's not ideal, shall we say. Now, because this is going to have to go at an angle, I need the base here at ground level effectively, but that means that pseudobulb's going to be a bit sunk in. So I'm going to pot it slightly on its side with a bit of a slant. And it's only just going to fit in here, and that is just what I want. In fact, what I'll do is I'll just not put that much media round the back of the plant. I'll leave the media at a slope so that that bulb doesn't sink too far in. Otherwise it's just going to be sat in media. Now okay, this is bark, hardly any moss at all. And even though it would be sat in that bark, there would still be air round its base. But nonetheless, I can deal with it by not putting too much media round the back. Plenty of wiggling going on. And what I like with the clear pots is I try and still be able to see some roots even though it's a repot. Now, for some reason or other, roots tend to head for the edge of the pot, which, given that they wouldn't normally be exposed to huge amounts of air, because a lot of them would go into moss and whatever was growing on the tree, fern roots and stuff, they would head into that sort of arena. But in a pot, they always seem to want to go to the outside of the pot where the daylight is. Unless you put your clear pot inside a dark pot, of course, which I do sometimes. Now that's all I want to do with that. I don't want that rammed in solid. I just want those roots touching. I don't want it silly tight. And then that cane can just go down there. And I don't... Do I need to tie it? Yeah, I suppose I better. Actually, that cane needs to go a bit nearer the middle. Otherwise we're going to have a wobbly plant. Wobbly plants lead to broken root tips when you pick them up and wiggle them around when you're watering and stuff. Better to have the plant firm. So let's do that then. Over the top. Another one over the top. Second one under the first one. Round the cane. Pull. Job done. And then I'm not going to tie this tight. I just want this main pseudo bulb with its leaves to stay still so that the new growth doesn't wiggle around when I pick the pot up. It can stay firm. That's all I'm doing. Just keeping it still. And that gives new roots the best chance in the world to get a hold. Not get wobbled around and broken. You know, new roots are precious. They're the survival of the plant for the future. Not the old roots, it's the new ones. Okay, so you can see again, base of the pseudo bulb just on the media, just on the surface. Any roots that come out of that new growth, if they start pushing out high and seem to be missing the media, I can sprinkle a little bit more on. But until they start shooting out, I don't know which direction they're going to go. And this back bulb here, as you can see, is not sunk in the media. It's sat on the surface. So that's that one done. Where's me label? We hope this is the right label, but I can check back on that later. So that's one of my... I like to think of that as one of the old-fashioned odontoglossums, even though it's actually called an odontodia. Yeah, but anyway, I can check back, make sure I've got the tag right. So that's that one done. That's two. Back in a bit. Okay, I'm finishing on this one for today because one, the video's getting too long. Two, I'm getting tired and I've had enough. And the three big ones that are left are going to take quite a bit of work. So I'll do those fresh tomorrow. They're fine bare rooted overnight. They're not going to have a problem. Now this little twinkle, I always wanted to mount a twinkle. While I'm there, that's coming off. Irrespective of why that leaf's gone like that. I don't particularly want to look at it. Some oncidiums just do that on older leaves, so I wouldn't panic. But yes, we have more new growths on here than I at first thought. There's two there. One at the base of that pseudo bulb and one at the base of that pseudo bulb. So that's two. And then there's another one round here. So it's got at least three new growths.
And having taken off all those black sheaths, it's not actually that bad. And most of the roots that are on it are viable. And I've always wanted to mount an Oncidium. So as that's out of the pot, that's what's going to happen. Now, because of that root mass, that's going to need a lot of moss. Not a little bit, a lot. Oncidiums, when they're growing well, like a reasonable drink. And bare rooted on a piece of bark, we'd be looking at watering it twice a day, which I'm not doing. So it's going to get a fair bit of moss. And some of the roots will now be aerial roots because I won't be able to get moss on all of them. That's not going to be possible. Now, where are those new growths? There and there. So that needs to be that way up so that the new growths head away from the bark. So we'll push some of the roots upwards so that it goes flatter, and the rest can just fan out, and they will get some moss on top of them. As I say, this is an unusual mount for me. I normally leave quite a lot of the roots aerial, but this is an Oncidium, and as I said, when they're growing well, they like to drink. I would suggest even that when they're growing well, they don't even want to dry out between waterings. They do in the winter, well they certainly do in this country. You need to be virtually dry before you water them because they're just not growing much. The light levels are too low, there's not much going on. Right, if I can tie that on like that, I'll be happy. No doubt this is all going to fall off. Actually, could do with a little bit more around there. That's a bit bare. There we go. The whole thing's a bit high. Can I slide the whole thing down? Yes, that's better. The problem with a plant where you've got a mount and the leaves stick up way above the top of the mount, where your hook is, you've got to bring your hook lower down, otherwise your leaves could be touching the roof and it starts getting complicated. So it's much better if the plant is near the base of the mount, allowing for some root space obviously. Right, that's going to do that. Most roots are in moss, some aren't. The base of the pseudobulbs aren't. That's deliberate. They've been too wet for too long. And the new growths will push out new roots down into the moss and through to the bark. If they grow, of course. Right, let's tie this on. This is going to be fun because as soon as I pick this up it's going to all fall off. But my third hand will hold it still while I get this round. Now this is quite a big piece of bark, and I don't know how many times I'm going to have to go round to get this secure, so I am going to have quite a long piece this time. And I sort of go on the grounds to keep my tie in one piece and not have to tie off and go back and get another piece. I'd rather waste a bit. You know, I mean, this fishing line actually cost me nothing. I was given it. So no loss. Right, so let's see what we can do with this thing then. As I said, this is an unusual mount for me to actually mount something with that many roots. I don't think I've ever done before. And with that amount of moss, I don't think I've done that either. But with that amount of moss, this should allow me to not have to water this every day, except in the really, really warmest weather. Right, let's see if we can get this to, we need a bigger loop. Everything's bigger on this. Now what I'm going to try and do is get my first loop round the base without it all falling off. Then I can get my thumb on it like that and get round the back. Yeah, you're an awkward one. You're dripping everywhere and my hands are now wet, which I don't like. Right, that's got one. Now we can come round and we can go round there. And I'm going to go round another one on the base. So that's 3 below the plant. Now I'm going to come back up there. There's a nice groove in the bark for that to anchor on, and I'm going to go in between that pseudobulb so that I've got that part of the plant secure. And then I'm only going to put one more round, and that really is to hold those top roots in place and get them anchored. So they're behind, that last loop is behind the pseudobulbs for the purposes of the roots. How's that? Yep, that's my test. You know, I've put the loops round. If this whole plant wiggles around, it's got to come off and go again. I haven't had to do that for a long time, but I have had to do it. Right, now you might be able to see this a bit better this time. I've got so much left over here, I'm going to take some off. Because my hands are wet and it's sticking. Now what I said about my first loop and the second loop always forms a V. You might actually be able to see what I'm on about now. And by putting my end through that V with my wet hands, when I pull it, it comes up against the original knot. Well, it didn't in this case because I missed the V. Come on, don't mess me about. There we go. See, it's up against the knot already, and then all I've got to do is get hold of the other end and tie my knot. And I'm not tying a knot in thin air. I'm tying it up against something firm, and it works. There we go. Now I'm not going to put a tag on this one. It's my only mounted Oncidium. I don't think I'll forget which one it is. It's Twinkle Cinnamon, okay? And that's what happens if you get a tiny little bit of alcohol on your supposedly permanent ink. Takes it straight off. And just before I go, that's sad. When I went out to get my mount, I got one that had been used before. That's what was on it once. I loved that plant, but I lost it. That's just a gentle reminder of things that once were. That was a smashing plant, that was. Beautiful blooms, and it keeled over. Reasons unknown at this point. Right, so there we go. One twinkle. We've got a new growth to come out here, and we've got a new growth there. And I'm sure there was, where was the other one? Oh, and the other one's down in there as well. So I've got two new growths to come out here, one new growth to come up the front, and who knows what else it will push out, because with a root system like that, most of those roots were viable. There was so little on there that was dead, I didn't even bother trimming it. So there we go, my first mounted Oncidium. And if I could remember which leaf I just cut off, I ought to put a bit of cinnamon on it really. Well, it was either that one or that one. Those are the only two that have been cut. One of those two, yeah. Okay, so that'll be it for today. I may or may not film the other three big ones. It depends whether I want to make a fool of myself, because they're going to be hard work. But at least they've got some roots. You know, at least I'm working with something reasonable, which is not what I expected. Okay, thanks for dropping by. Sorry this one went on a bit, but there was quite a bit we got through. You know, chopping and changing, thinking about things. That's how it goes. See you next time. Bye for now.